I used to be teacher Clara, the one who filled the board with formulas and graphs, quietly laughing whenever a student mentioned praying before a test. "Guys, let's stick to logic, evidence, the scientific method," I'd say, tapping the marker on the desk with a sarcastic smile. I grew up surrounded by biology books and documentaries about the cosmos. To me, Jesus was just a historical character distorted by centuries of mythology. Faith. An emotional crutch. Miracle. Misinterpreted statistics. I was proud of being a hardcore atheist, the kind who corrected "God bless you" with "bless you," and followed it with a "no gods involved." But deep down, when the classroom emptied and I stayed grading papers late into the night, a cold emptiness tightened in my chest. I'd swallow hard, turn the radio up, and keep going, convinced it was just exhaustion. My routine ran like Swiss clockwork. Wake up at 5:30, black coffee, run in the park, class at 7, staff meeting, a pile of tests, a lonely dinner with a science documentary playing on my laptop. Boyfriend. I had one, but we fought all the time because he was a light Christian, and I couldn't stand church talk. "You live in a fairy tale, babe," I'd snap, and he'd go quiet. I thought I held the absolute truth. God's presence. Where's the thermometer to measure that? I joke among my fellow teachers. Except man, that hole in my chest wasn't just lack of sleep. It was a screaming silence, and I kept covering it up with more work, more articles, more online debates where I crushed any little Christian who dared to show up. Transformation hits when you least expect it. And mine was being prepared in a corner I didn't even know existed. I taught evolution like it was my own personal gospel. "Kids, look at the fossils. Millions of years natural selection, period. No creator, no magical purpose." The students loved it, thought it was revolutionary. My ego ballooned. But at night, alone in my apartment, I'd stare at the ceiling and think, what if I die tomorrow? That's it. End of the line. Total darkness. I'd shake my head and laugh at myself. Come on, Anna, go to sleep. I planned retirement, trips, maybe a PhD. Divine deliverance. Didn't even exist in my vocabulary. I was the queen of "I'm enough." But that house of cards was about to collapse. Life-changing moments don't send warnings. They arrive with a silence that stops your heart. Remember those Friday nights when I'd grade tests until midnight with a glass of wine to relax? I felt invincible. Look at me, solid career, decent health, sharp mind. But the body started sending signals. A little pain here, a little fatigue there. Stress, I diagnosed myself. Dr. Google in action. My mother, a devout Catholic, would text, "Honey, pray a little." I'd reply with a laughing emoji. "Mom, stop it." I was tough on the outside, but inside there were cracks. The faith I rejected flickered like a tiny light in the corner of my eye, and I kept turning away. The miracle was being stitched together in secret, and the deliverance was about to catch me off guard. Then one random Saturday I was washing dishes, humming some protest atheist song, when I felt a weight on my chest. Indigestion, I thought, taking a deep breath. But the weight turned into a knife. The air vanished, the floor spun. I tried reaching for my phone, but my legs gave out. I hit the cold tile face first, and the last thing I thought was, damn it, it was supposed to be just another normal day. My heart stopped. And the science I defended so fiercely didn't explain what came next. Jesus, the one I called a myth, was about to show up in a way no book could refute. My transformation began in absolute darkness, and God's presence was about to surround me like nothing I ever imagined. I fell, and the world vanished in an instant. No tunnel of light at first, nothing like that. It started with absolute darkness, like someone had switched off the entire universe. I, who always said death is just total blackout, was floating in the middle of nothing. No body, no air, no sound. Just a conscious mind drifting. Is this it? It's over, I thought, and panic hit like an icy wave. Me, the queen of reason, was lost in a void that made no sense. But then I felt a pull. Not physical. More like something dragging me through a dark corridor with no walls, no floor. I wasn't walking, I was sliding. And the fear. Oh, that was real. I screamed inside my mind. Go back, I don't want this. But no one answered. The transformation was only beginning, and deliverance was still a distant whisper. Then the corridor began to change. The darkness wasn't so dense anymore. There was a faint glow ahead, like a weak bulb at the end of a tunnel. Kept moving, no choice. Chemical hallucination of a dying brain. My scientific mind tried to explain, but the voice sounded feeble, almost ridiculous. Because that glow wasn't normal light. It was warm, alive, and the closer I got, the lighter my shoulders felt. A weight I'd carried for years without even realizing. God's presence. I still denied it, but I could feel it. It was like someone knew me better than I knew myself. Jesus, the one I called an invention, was there, waiting. Life change wasn't theory anymore. It was real, even without a body. I got closer, and the light turned into an ocean. It didn't blind, it wrapped around me. It was golden, but not like gold. It was alive, pulsing. And inside it, a figure. Not a church painting, not a beard and robe. It was light shaped like a man. And the eyes? Man, the eyes were what hurt the most. Because they looked at me with a love I'd never received from anyone. Not from my parents, not from my boyfriend, not even from myself. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. You didn't know me, but I was always here, the voice said. Not through my ears, but straight into my soul. And I cried. I cried without tears, but I cried. 'Cause it was true. Every night of emptiness, every mockery, every God doesn't exist. He was there, quiet, waiting. The miracle wasn't the light. It was the love I never deserved. I tried to speak, to justify myself. I was an atheist, I taught the wrong things, I mocked. But the voice came back gentle. I know. And even so, I brought you here. I felt a touch on my forehead like a warm hand. Then came flashes. My grandmother praying, my mother crying on the phone, a student I humiliated for talking about faith. All at once. It wasn't judgment. It was an invitation. Go back. It's not your time. And me, the one who always wanted control, screamed. No. Let me stay here. Because there was no pain there, no emptiness. But the light smiled, I swear it smiled, and said, You have a purpose. Go and tell. Deliverance wasn't just from the body. It was from eternal death. The faith I denied was being born right there, in the middle of the light. And then like a snap I was pulled back. The dark corridor again, but now in reverse. The light shrinking behind me. I fought it, I wanted to stay, but a greater force dragged me away. I felt my chest ache, air burning its way in, distant voices. She's coming back. Pressure rising. I opened my eyes in the hospital. White lights, a mask over my face, doctors shouting. Coughed, cried, trembled. And the first thing that came out of my mouth wasn't, Where am I? It was, Jesus. The doctors looked at each other. Me, the tough atheist, calling for Jesus. The transformation had already begun, and the miracle was just getting started. The beeping of the monitor was the only sound cutting through the silence in the room. I opened my eyes and closed them again, thinking I was still in the light. But no, white ceiling, smell of alcohol, pain in my chest like I'd been run over by a truck. A nurse leaned close, eyes wide. Mrs. Anna, you came back. 7 minutes without a pulse. 7 minutes. You knew. 7 minutes that changed everything. I tried to speak, my throat raw. Jesus, she frowned, thinking it was post-cardiac arrest delirium. But I repeated it stronger. I saw Jesus. He told me to come back. Baptize me. The whole room froze. I, the teacher who corrected God with a red pen, begging for baptism. The transformation wasn't just internal anymore. It was spilling out of my mouth. My mother ran in, her face swollen from crying so much. She grabbed my hand and started praying out loud. Me, the one who always told her to shut up with the rosary, now squeezed her hand and cried with her. Mom, he was there. He always was. She fell to her knees in the hospital room, thanking him. The doctor, a proud atheist I knew, we had debated it in the cafeteria, leaned against the door with his arms crossed, trying to rationalize. Cerebral hypoxia, a classic hallucination. I smiled weakly. Then explain why I know what the lady in the ICU next door was wearing when she died yesterday. He went pale. I didn't know how I knew, I just did. God's presence doesn't fit in a medical report. The miracle was right there, in my hoarse voice. I stayed awake that whole night, lights off, only the glow from the hallway shining in. I replayed every second. The dark corridor, the light, the voice. You have a purpose. Purpose. I, who taught that life was a biochemical accident, now carried a mission. I started scribbling in the hospital notepad. Names of students, co-workers, my ex-boyfriend. I have to tell them. The nurse brought me water, I held her hand. Have you ever felt a love you can't explain? She laughed nervously, but her eyes welled up. I planted the first seed right there between 4 bags and bandages. The life change wasn't just mine, it was contagious. The deliverance had a destination. Go back and speak. The next day I asked for a pastor. The hospital called the chaplain. He walked in kind of shy, and I was already sitting up in bed, eyes glowing. Baptize me today. I'm not waiting. He explained there was supposed to be preparation. I cut him off. 7 minutes dead was preparation enough. He smiled, realized it wasn't delirium. He brought a plastic basin and warm water from the sink. Family at the door, doctors peeking in. When the water touched my forehead, I shook all over. Clara, I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. In that moment I felt it again, the light. Not as strong but present. Jesus sealing the covenant. The faith I had killed with books was reborn with 3 drops of water. I left the hospital a week later. Weak body, exploding soul. I got discharged with a prescription and a Bible the chaplain had slipped into my bag. In the taxi, I opened it randomly. John 11 verse 25. I am the resurrection and the life. I cried so hard the driver pulled over. Ma'am, are you okay? I answered between sobs. Better than ever. The transformation was just shifting gears. I was already planning. Go back to school, apologize publicly, tell my story everywhere. The miracle wasn't just that I came back, it was that I came back on fire. And the purpose. It would begin in my first class after dying. Monday 8 a.m. I walked into the classroom with the principal holding my arm. She still thought I needed medical leave. But I didn't. Backpack on, Bible in hand. Heart racing like it was my first day as a teacher. The students exchanged glances when they saw me. Miss Anna's back. Someone shouted. I smiled, but it was a different smile. Not the sarcastic one I used to have. It was the smile of someone who died and returned. I placed the Bible on the desk next to the biology book. Total silence. Good morning, class. Today's lesson is about evolution of the soul. A boy gave a nervous laugh. I raised my hand. Go ahead, laugh. Laugh too. Until I died in my apartment kitchen. The room froze. The transformation wasn't a secret anymore. It was on full blast. I started telling everything. The dark corridor, the light, the voice. You didn't know me, but I was always here. One student, Pedro, the one I humiliated for wearing a crucifix, started crying quietly. I stopped, walked over, hugged him. I'm sorry, son. I was wrong. Jesus is real. And he sent me back to ask forgiveness from you all. The principal tried to interrupt. Ms. Anna, this is a science class. I turned to her firm. This is a life class. And life doesn't end in the grave. She walked out, face red. The students didn't blink. I showed the scar on my chest. 7 minutes without a heartbeat. 7 minutes with him. Someone whispered, a miracle. I nodded. The deliverance wasn't just mine. It was theirs too. During recess, the courtyard became a confessional. Students came one by one. Ms., I doubt too. Ms., my mom is sick. I prayed right there, my hand on their heads, voice shaking. A physics teacher, my former partner in Atheist debates, stood in the doorway. Anna, this is post-trauma brainwashing. I smiled. Then explain why I know your daughter is thinking about killing herself this week. He collapsed into a chair. I didn't know how I knew. Jesus whispered it. God's presence doesn't fit in a lab. The life change was viral. Students created a prayer group on WhatsApp. Teachers asked to talk after class. The whole school trembled. In the afternoon, a staff meeting. Principal at the head of the table. Me in the corner. Bible closed on my lap. She began. Ms. Anna, we need to discuss conduct. I stood up. Perfect. Let's talk about conduct. I taught for 15 years that God doesn't exist. That was a lie. Fire me if you want, but I won't shut up. Silence. The math coordinator, a closeted Catholic, slammed his hand on the table. I stand with her. 2 others raised their hands. The principal swallowed hard. I continued. I want a chapel in the school. Or at least a room for spiritual dialogue. Someone laughed. I held up my phone. I already have 300 signatures from parents. The transformation wasn't just mine. It was a revolution. The purpose burned inside me. To use the same board where I denied Jesus to prove he exists. I left the meeting with my heart on fire. In the hallway, a student was waiting for me. Prof, can I go to your house today? I want to meet this Jesus. Hugged her. That day I took 3 of them home. I made hot chocolate, opened the Bible to John 3 verse 16, and prayed with them until 11 p.m. One of them accepted Jesus right there in my living room, on his knees on the rug. I cried so much it stained the page. The faith I had killed with a red pen was being reborn with tears. The miracle was spreading. And the next step. I already knew. I needed to tell this to the whole world, not just a classroom. I sat in the kitchen, the same one where I had dropped dead, now with my laptop open and my Bible beside me. The phone standing vertically, lamp light, face swollen like someone who hasn't slept in days. Hi, I'm Clara, the atheist teacher who died for 7 minutes and came back with a message from Jesus. I hit record with trembling hands. I said everything. The darkness, the light, the voice, the baptism in the hospital sink, the classroom on fire. At the end I ugly cried. If you're as empty as I was, try calling him. Just call. I posted it on YouTube without a thumbnail, without editing, simple title. Dies and Returns. My encounter with Jesus. I went to bed thinking it might blow up at most among the parents of my students. I woke up to 47,000 views and my phone exploding. The transformation no longer fit inside me. It was flooding the whole internet. The comments came like an avalanche. Lies, hallucination, paid by the church. I expected that. But there were others. I cried through the whole video. My son killed himself last week, you gave me hope. Where can I get baptized today? I answered each one until 4 a.m., fingers aching. Soon I started getting invitations. A small church in the neighborhood, then a 200-seat auditorium, then a gymnasium. At first I spoke without a microphone, my voice hoarse, but people would come so close I could feel the warmth. A tattooed biker cried on my shoulder. I'm an atheist too, but I came to see if it's real. At the end of the talk, he accepted Jesus right there, helmet in hand. The life change was contagious, and the miracle multiplied in every hug. One day I was at the supermarket, cart empty because I had forgotten what I came to buy, when a lady recognized me. You're the teacher from the video. She started crying right there between the yogurts, told me her husband had terminal cancer. Will you pray with me? I held her hand and prayed out loud, people stopping their carts. Her husband called the following week. The tumor had disappeared in the exam. The doctor had no explanation. She sent me the test results on WhatsApp. I showed it in the next video. Look at the deliverance Jesus performed. The channel jumped from 10K to 100K in 2 days. God's presence didn't need a studio. It needed a phone and a broken heart. I quit the school for good. The administration accepted my resignation with disguised relief. I used my severance money to buy a simple camera and a lapel mic. I built a studio in the dining room. White backdrop, a wooden cross a student made, cheap LED lights. I recorded the second video. How I know Jesus is real. 5 proofs even science can't explain. I included the cancer report, the photo of the baptism in the sink, the audio of the doctor saying, "Impossible." Views exploded. Big pastors started calling me to preach. I laughed. I don't even know how to preach, I just tell what I lived. But I went, and it filled up. The faith I had killed with Darwin was being reborn through living testimony. Hey, you who are watching this now. Have you ever stopped to think if that tightness in your chest you feel sometimes might be Jesus knocking at your door? Tell me in the comments. Have you ever had an unexplainable almost? Ever felt a presence science can't reach? Leave it there, I read them all. Who knows? Maybe your story becomes the next video. The transformation doesn't stop with me. It flows through you too. And the next step. I felt it was time to leave Brazil, to bring this message to people who had never heard about deliverance. I was at Guarulhos airport with a 23-kilogram suitcase, a brand new passport, and a knot in my throat that wasn't fear of flying. It was fear of failing. Destination: Luanda, Angola. A church of 300 members invited me after seeing the viral video. They said they had 40 ex-atheists in the congregation waiting to hear, someone who came back from the other side. I laughed nervously at check-in. I don't even know a whole verse by heart, Lord. But the ticket was paid, and the purpose burned stronger than the fear. On the plane, I sat next to an Angolan engineer who kept looking at my crucifix. "Are you a pastor?" he asked. I answered, "I'm an ex-corpse." His eyes went wide. He asked to borrow my headphones, and watched my video right there on the seat screen. When the flight attendant brought juice, he was crying. "My sister died last week. Cardiac arrest too." I was furious with God. I held his hand. "Talk to him now. He hears you even in a metal sky at 30,000 feet. The man prayed right there, voice trembling, flight attendant walking by pretending not to see. When we landed, he hugged me tight. "I'm going to church with you." I arrived in Luanda with an unexpected companion. God's presence doesn't respect time zones. The service was held in a zinc warehouse, a ceiling fan creaking, 500 people squeezed in, twice the capacity. I walked up onto the wooden platform, microphone screeching, translator at my side. I started in Portuguese. He translated into Umbundu. I told everything, the kitchen, the darkness, the light. You didn't know me. When I got to the baptism in the sink, the translator stopped, voice breaking. He himself was a former atheist, with a physics degree from Portugal. "Keep going, brother, it's true," I said. The whole church was shouting hallelujah, in languages I didn't even know. An old man with a cane stood up. "I saw that same corridor in 1987, but I came back and never told anyone. Today I tell it." He accepted Jesus publicly. The miracle wasn't just mine. It was inheritance. The next day we went to the countryside. Red dirt road. Dust blowing in through the window of the borrowed Beetle. We stopped in a village where no missionary had ever entered. Children ran after the car shouting, "Mulungu." White person. I set up a service under a mango tree. A white sheet as a screen, my phone projecting the video. Elderly women sitting on the ground. Men with machetes at their waists. I spoke slow Portuguese. A teenage girl translated into Kimbundu. When I talked about the light, a woman dropped to her knees. "I dreamed of that light last night. It said a white woman would bring it." She accepted Jesus there. Red dirt on her knees. Deliverance crosses oceans. There was a moment I thought I wouldn't make it. Night service, generator failed, total darkness. 800 people, silence. I remembered the dark corridor. Guys, this is how it starts. But the light comes. Someone turned on a cell phone flashlight, then another, then another. In 30 seconds the warehouse was lit by 800 little lights. I cried. "Look at that, Jesus multiplying light like bread." We sang Because He Lives a cappella, voices echoing through the African night. A young man came up after. "I was going to kill myself today. I came just to see if it was real. Now I live." Transformation doesn't need a passport. It has an address in the soul. I came back to Brazil 15 days later with a suitcase full of letters, children's drawings, and a new scar on my heart. The channel had passed 500K while I was gone. Messages from all over the world. Japan, Germany, even North Korea, a guy wrote secretly. I read them and cried in the kitchen, the same one where I died. The faith I had denied was now crossing borders. The purpose was expanding. It wasn't about telling a school anymore. It was about telling the planet. And the next step. I felt a bigger calling, a place where atheism is law and testimony is a crime. The invitation came through an encrypted email. Sister Anna, come to the capital. We have 30 underground believers. We need your story. The country. One where the Bible is contraband, church is a crime, atheism is official doctrine. I hesitated for 24 hours. I remembered the light. You have purpose. I bought a ticket to a neighboring country and crossed the border by land with a tourist backpack, Bible hidden inside the cover of a quantum physics book. I arrived at the safe house. A damp basement, 28 people sitting on the floor, headlamps on. I started whispering. I was an atheist just like you were taught to be. When I spoke about the light, a woman covered her mouth to keep from screaming. She was a government scientist, a defector. Transformation was beginning in forced silence. On the second night we broke a record. 42 people. Tight space, heavy air. I was telling about the baptism in the sink when the door creaked. 3 police officers, flashlights in our faces. Documents. I raised my hands, heart in my throat. One of them recognized me. You're the Brazilian from the forbidden video. They handcuffed me. The brothers vanished through trapdoors I didn't even know existed. They threw me into a police van, alone with my fear. But you know what I felt? Is the same peace as the light. On the way I prayed out loud. Jesus, if this is where I die again, let it be while telling. The driver looked at me in the mirror, curious. Deliverance doesn't need an audience. It needs a heart. The cell was 2 by 3, dirty wall, bucket in the corner. I sat on the cold floor and started softly singing, Because He Lives. The prisoner in the next cell answered. Who taught you that song? She was a Christian imprisoned for 5 years. We spent the night singing through the wall, muffled voices. The next day a guard brought bread. I thanked him in Jesus' name. He stopped. You're not afraid. I replied. I died once. Fear is a luxury I don't have. He sat outside, listened to the whole story. In the end he cried. My daughter died of cardiac arrest. I blamed God. I prayed for him there, bars between us. God's presence passes through iron. And you reading this now. Have you ever imagined talking about Jesus knowing it might cost your freedom? Tell me in the comments. What would you risk for your faith? Have you ever faced a closed door because of him? Leave it there. I read even from behind bars. Who knows? Your courage might inspire someone trapped in their own fear. Because the miracle doesn't stop in my cell. It moves through your screen. On the 3rd day they called me for interrogation. Gray room, officer with a stone face. Renounce publicly and you go home. I smiled. Renouncing Jesus is renouncing life. Do whatever you want. He turned on the camera. I started. I am Clara. I died for 7 minutes, came back with a message. He turned it off, nervous. That night they released me without explanation. Prison door opened at 3 a.m. I walked out with the clothes on my back and the Bible untouched. A taxi was waiting, the guard who heard the story. Go before they change their minds. At the airport I posted a 30-second audio. Imprisoned but free. Jesus is real even in prison. The video blew up. The life change was now global, and the purpose was being fulfilled in every cell I would never see again.